Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host, and I'm glad to have you back listening to the show. We got a great guest today, Darin Davis, and he's got a couple of great subjects we're going to go over. I'll let him fill you in on the blanks, but the first thing I want to do is say thank you, Darren, for joining us. I appreciate you taking your valuable time to share your insight with us.
Thanks, Gary. I'm looking forward to it. In fact, we talked earlier about storytelling. Hopefully, I'll get to share a few of my experiences through a story, and it'll resonate with people on some action items for them.
Awesome. That's what I like to do. Give them, like we call it, meat and potatoes. Give them the meat and potatoes. So, actually, let's go ahead and start. So, if you wouldn't mind, maybe take us back to what was the transition point in your life getting into this part of your business when it comes to investing in real estate and raising capital. Was there a pivotal moment or a moment of inspiration, or just one of those things God just drops somebody in your lap and it all comes together?
And I love to answer this question because I'm probably like a lot of other people, but I literally, like most people, graduated college at University of Oklahoma, and I had a marketing degree, business degree. And back in the 80s, what that meant is you went and you worked for some company selling. I didn't wasn't a doctor, an engineer, wasn't any of that. So you get out there and you hustle. Well, I found out that I was really good at hustling, so I could sell, and it wasn't selling. I mean, it was back then. I didn't even know we called it that. But it was relationship selling. And it was really just listening to your clients. So I had 15 years of really high performance success, but I literally took a step back, and I'm out in San Francisco at the time, pre-dot-com or through the dot-com or pre-dot-com bubble. And we had so much going on. There was so much energy. People were selling. The dot-com and the internet was blowing up in the late 90s in a good way, positive way. And I caught myself after about 4 years. I said, I am Monday through Friday on a plane. I said, I have no social life. I said, this can't go on. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really know how to break out of it. And I didn't have a plan, but I think my father unexpectedly passed away. And I just said, okay, I'm done. I said, I got to figure out what I'm doing. And I kid you not, and I've heard so many people talk about Robert Kiyosaki. I'm driving down the highway for my hour commute to my job. He's on the radio. I don't know who this guy is. Caught my attention. Okay. Well, back then, you couldn't get on the internet and go figure out who it was. So I pulled over on the side of the highway and was late to work 30 minutes because I wanted to hear the entire program. And I drove back home that day, and I told my then girlfriend, which became my wife, I said, I'm done. I found it. I know what we're doing. We're going into real estate. And that was it. Because it was a control mechanism. I was being controlled. I was producing. I was going, wait a second. I can take control of my own life and I can still produce. And literally just happened to hear a radio spot, went and tried to find the book. And I would say within a year and a half later, had both of us had quit our jobs and moved from California back to Texas. And that's what started it. It was control, 100% control. I was losing control of my life.
Yeah. What's interesting is I was working in the corporate world and hated it. I mean, I was not born to be sitting behind a desk in a corporate office, and came across Robert Kiyosaki and ended up, taking his initial program. I think it was on cassette tape.
Oh yeah. It was.
Yeah. And, but the first two books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Cash Flow Quadrant, that set the pace. And I'll tell you, this is really kind of cool. In 2015, I went to this men's group conference in Lake Tahoe and got to spend the day with Robert Kiyosaki, had dinner with him and everything. Of course, they take her picture with him. And it's really neat because I'm going to turn things back over here in a second. Just want people to listen to this. I built a portfolio of properties, but it actually led me to build businesses. And I'm talking to Robert, and I said, I don't know if I'm doing this right or not. I feel like I should be going back to real estate. He said, oh, no. He said, follow the cash flow quadrant. The B means business owner, business builder. And he's right. I've read things. And it's sure enough, he said that people that build businesses make the most, and that you have more freedom and flexibility. We build them and we sell them. We build them and we sell them. Any case, so let's go back to take us from that point going forward. You're excited about real estate now, and I'm gathering at some point it bought you your freedom. Maybe that was the moment right there.
Yeah, and I probably want to point something out, because if I don't say it now, I don't want to forget. But if anybody knows Robert knows that he came from a military background, Marine Corps. He was a pilot. My father was also Marine Corps. So when I'm hearing him speak, I'm hearing my father. And I'm sitting there, got these two disciplined guys talking about action items, structure, discipline. And it resonated with me. I said, wait a second, that's everything my dad has taught me, but I didn't know how to implement it other than just being a sales guy. Okay. And then Robert put structure around it, as far as like what you're saying, business owner, cash flow quadrant. And I said, boom, light bulb went off. And I said, okay, I've been raised by a Marine. I understand what he's talking about, discipline, structure, execution, all that. And I kid you not, the ability to take action, to literally take that first step is what probably launched us. And my wife was going like, are you sure? Are you sure? I go, no, I have no idea. I go, but I know if I don't do it, I'll never know. And that literally, I think hearing that message and understanding, and I guess my message to everybody here is, we all know what atrophy is. Okay. We all know what atrophy is. We all back in, you wear a cast and you don't use that muscle. It's the same thing with your brain. Okay. You can waste it, you can spend it, or you can invest it. Okay. So it's just, you've got to take an actionable item, and you're going to fail. There's no doubt about it. But you don't have that memory or that experience when you fail about how to correct. So I guess my message there is to anybody that's kind of got one foot in the door and one foot out the door, go. Just if you're halfway serious about it, go.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's just if when you're riding the fence and you're not going one way or the other, you're just wasting time. I mean, life is precious, and I tell you, the clock keeps getting ticking faster and faster. And I want to tell you, this is kind of funny. I came with this years ago. In my family, we all get gray. I'm the only one who still has some natural color. Everybody, they're totally gray. In any case, what I like is this: says every gray hair is a story. It's a little failure where there's a lesson attached to it. And the older you get, the more lessons you get, and the wiser you become. So if the grayer you are, the wiser you are.
Yeah, very true.
That's what you got to keep trying. You got to swing the bat. Every day you have to wake up, hit the ground running, keep swinging the bat. You can never give up. And so I'm sure if you met it, would you mind weaving in a story, or do tell us about maybe one of your challenges? You hit a roadblock or a failure, like holy crap. But and usually if you're an entrepreneur, something comes out of it. It could be a year later, it could be a month later. You never know. But most entrepreneurs figure this out over time, and then you relish it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'll tell you a story that was at the time, I thought it was, it was sink or swim. I mean, I had one option, is survival or we go down. And and this is for anybody that's, at least been in this business for the last 15 years. In 2007, I purchased a tract of land. And I did it backwards. I didn't know, but I purchased a tract of land. And then I started going through and getting my entitlements. And we were going to build a little area, like these little small shotgun houses, little zero lot line houses, because I had a builder friend, architect friend. And everybody knows 2007, 2008, the financial markets just went away. I had a commitment letter from a lender. I had everything set up. And I remember calling the lender and said, hey guys, I just want to make sure everything's good. And they said, well, things aren't good. And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, we're going to be out of business tomorrow. And I said, well, that's why you haven't called me back in a few weeks. So here I am sitting with quite a bit of money on this land, and then a loan and all this entitlement work, and none of it's going to work. No lenders, no nothing. I mean, nothing. So my back is against the wall. And I got asked this question about this project one other time. But we had to do something. And So this guy asked me, he said, well, how did you go forward? How did you underwrite it? How did you prove to your investors that it was a good investment? I said, I had one choice. Okay. I had a gun. I literally had a gun to my head. You figure it out. Okay. I said,
Yeah.
there was no underwriting. I had to tell my investors, we're going to figure this out. I'm smart enough. Trust me. And what we ended up doing, and I didn't know anything about this, but you become extremely resourceful when your back's up against the wall. You've got to figure it out. So I kept asking questions, kept reaching out. And then I found out, let me back up. We had to take that
Mhm.
single house thing off the plate, off the design, and we converted it to a multifamily.
Okay.
Well, I learned that multifamily was far more desirable than single family. If you knew it was happening to all the single family homes, I mean, people were just walking away from them left and right.
Yeah.
So found out. So I met a guy that was in development. He knew a GC and blah blah blah. All this. So we ended up securing a HUD insured loan, which gave us about 80% leverage, which was unheard of typically. All
Wow.
right.
Yeah.
We ended up, the city of Austin, where I live, had a big push to support affordable housing. So they had a general obligation bond and they had X amount of money. I think it was around 50 million set aside for the next 2 years to support
Hmm.
affordable housing. Well, to make a long story short, being extremely resourceful, back up against the wall, I started just asking a ton of questions. And I met a developer and he had had HUD experience. The general contractor had HUD experience. The city of Austin wanted housing. And at that time, nothing was being built. I mean, 2008 and 9, nothing was coming out of the ground. And we actually got that project approved, got it built. And when we opened the doors at the end of 2010, that entire 240 unit project was leased up in 5 months because there was no new supply coming on the market for 2 years. And that ended up being one of our best investments. We had it for 12, 13 years. We were able to refi it twice, pull cash out tax free to our investors, and we
Yeah.
kept holding it for cash flow. We provided housing. The city was excited about it. HUD was excited about it. Our investors were excited about it. But it all came down to not giving up and just being as extremely resourceful as we possibly could. And we did not have the experience. If you had to ask me, hey, you want to get into multifamily? If the market had been good, I'd go, no way. I don't know anything about market multifamily development. But
Yeah.
hindsight, when your back's up against the wall, you got to figure it out. And it ended up pivoting my mindset and my business partner. We said, wait a second, we just found something here. And that's what took us off, and we started doing multifamily from there on in.
Nice. Okay. Well, this is getting good. So moving forward, uh, you started getting into the capital raising, that kind of a thing. Uh, and then here we are now. It's 2024, and we're looking when we look ahead at the business, and those of us that are in the business, we know what's coming. You know, some people we call it a tsunami sometimes, but if you in the world of commercial financing, guys, everybody listening here, it's unlike residential financing. You can buy anything up to a 4 unit residential and get residential financing. You know, put down a small down payment and finance the rest for 30 years. In commercial, there's 5 year resets on all those commercial loans. They're generally 15-year terms, sometimes 20, but every 5 years, the interest rate resets. Whereas a whole batch of those coming up here. So if you wouldn't mind, Darren, kind of take us from there, like where we are, what you see coming, and what is it you're doing about that and helping the investor community, you know?
Yeah, so for people that either if you're an investor or you're looking at an opportunity, so what's happening right now is between the back half of 2024 all the way through 2028, there are billions and billions of dollars of loans, construction loans coming due. Now, I'm going to give you an example. We have three projects right now that are in that bucket of construction loans. Now we have 2.5 years on all three of those, but
Mhm.
here's the challenge. Here's what's happening to people. When we took out those construction loans 2.5 years ago, interest rates were at 3.5. Okay. Interest rates on
Mhm.
construction loans are at like 8 now. All right. So
Mhm.
that gap has just for us, but we're in a pretty good position on ours. But there's a lot of people that do not have enough interest reserve or enough money to get through to that loan maturity you're talking about. So when this loan starts to mature, and they're usually about a year out, these guys start looking for, okay, what are we going to do? Our loan's maturing. We cannot refinance this thing because leverage is so low. Rents have kind of flattened. Valuations have come down. So we have been a common equity shop for the last decade where we have funded developers and you put common equity in there. Well, what's happening now is these developers are saying, hey, I need some help. Okay. We call it rescue capital. Okay. And we're needing 2, 3, 4, 5 million to get this thing over the goal line so they can get it leased up and wait for the kind of the supply demand to shift more in their favor and wait for interest rates to come down a little bit. But we look at this as a really kind of a once in a decade opportunity because we didn't need pref equity the last 10, 12 years because capital was so cheap. Oh, that's not the case today. So what's happening is we're being asked to provide this piece called preferred equity. And just like a preferred stock, if anybody does stock markets, common stock and preferred stock, real similar, you have a priority over the common, right? So we're putting this money in, helping the developers. And what's happening is we're getting a cash flow payment. All right. We are also ahead of the common equity. So we get paid before the sponsor gets paid and before the common equity gets paid. We get fully paid. So, and now we don't have the backside opportunity that the common equity guys do, but we have a contracted price of repayment. And for most of our investors, it's around 10 to 12% paid out in cash flow, 10 to 12% a year. And it's short term because these guys don't need the money long term. They just need to come in and fix this gap. And so here's the other good part for us. We underwrite these investments like we were going to own the asset. So we're not just throwing money at every deal because in the event the market continues to stay soft, we very well could take that project over or buy it at a discount. So we look at it as, okay, we get to come in and help these guys with their capital stack and get some preferred equity and get them over the goal line. But we also get a front row seat to watch the asset, see what's going on. So we're getting paid to come in and watch that asset perform and understand operationally, rent comps, everything. We get to see everything. And I liken it to a Trojan horse with an olive branch. So we get to come in, we get to get paid, we're helping them, we get to see, we're on a front row seat what's going on. And I like the model we're in because we've got several opportunities for this preferred equity. And we think we're going to have 2 or 3 years. And we think we're going to pick up a good handful of investments, Class A projects at not distressed, but at a discount.
Did you know that you can participate in class every Monday? We call it Monday Night Live, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me and dozens of other investor agents from around the country, in fact, the world. Every Monday, totally free. No selling, no recruiting, just straight up education on anything and everything in real estate. And we have a lot of good guests coming on once or twice a month, bringing in expertise on subjects like how to buy a house with crypto. Okay. How about them apples? What about AI? How's AI affecting our business? How about the metaverse, blockchain processing? We're already using it in title work. So come on to Monday Night Live, be ready to take notes and ask questions because it's live and engaging and you get to participate by asking questions and meeting others. So we'll see you there. Go to realestatewithgarywilson.com, click on the resource tab, drop down, and you'll see Monday Night Live. And in there, you can see one of the most recent classes. But more importantly, you can register for class as many as you want going up to like the end of the year, I believe. So in any case, do that. We'll see you on Monday Night Live. Look forward to meeting you in person. Take care. Yeah. What as far as the class of properties, are you seeing this impact more in one class or subclasses versus others? Like in other words, you got multifamily, you got retail, office, industrial, storage. To me, this is just my opinion, but during the pandemic years, I'm going around looking at properties myself because a lot of the office places were empty. And I'm thinking, how can I repurpose this? How can I make this something better? But if you don't mind sharing, what kind of opportunities do you foresee? And nobody's going to hold you to. It's not like a test or anything, because you know how life
Yeah.
is. We think it's going to go this way, it goes that way, you know. But what sectors are you think are going to be the best ones to focus on?
Well, and I'll tell you, we chose multifamily, 12,
Mhm.
15 years ago because of just the housing component and the lending is so attractive on it typically. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I live in Austin, so we have the I-35 corridor, which goes from South Texas, Mexico, all the way up, to Canada. But
Mhm.
you know, when we had COVID, we clearly recognized that we had too much of our manufacturing or products and services in China or overseas. So
Mhm.
if you haven't heard this term, you will, but from offshoring to onshoring. So Mexico is picking up a tremendous amount of onshoring, and I-35 is the heart, the artery. And then we have right in San Antonio, you have I-35 north and south and I-10 east and
Mhm.
west. So you have the confluent right there. So for us, industrial, cold storage, triple net, and multifamily are the things that I really, really like.
Yeah.
And I say that I know them better, but I've
Yeah.
had storage units before. I had a marina before. I've done
Mhm.
land development before. I've done spec homes before, and I've kind of tried a lot of things. But I think for people that are looking kind of where they should go, I mean, you look at where the job's going, where's the net
Yeah.
migration going? Where's the major arteries? Where's the industries going? And so I think we're very fortunate because literally from South Texas all the way up through Oklahoma City, there
Yeah.
is 18 wheelers, transportation, trucking, jobs, manufacturing. We're just real fortunate. Florida's got that too. I think you're a
Yeah.
native Floridian. I mean,
Yeah.
Florida's got a similar scenario, east, west, north, south. So, but
Yeah.
we'll stick with multifamily is probably our primary just because we know it so well.
Yeah. It's funny. That's my background too, is I dabbled in others, but multifamily, it just comes back to, if you think about what people need and want, you know, food, shelter, clothing, we're providing shelter. And just like any commodity, it's pretty much commoditized because there's so much of it. But the reality is if you just do a good job, if you have a decent property, you're going to attract decent tenants and have decent rents. It's the tortoise, not the hare. Um, the only, by the way, where you are does make a difference. For everybody listening, I'm going to give you a couple of websites and tools to track the movement of people and money. So there's one called How Money Walks, and it actually uses publications from the IRS tax filings. It shows you where money's moving from county to county and state to state, even counties in different states to count, like in other words, Cook County, Illinois is where Chicago is. I can see how much money's leaving there and where it's going. And a lot of it's, of course, going to Texas. Um, and then the U-Haul, there's a famous report called the U-Haul report. And the U-Haul literally publishes this report. It says, here's where most of our trailers are being rented, and here's where the destinations are. So you can kind of figure out where everybody's moved. I mean, there's other more sophisticated tools, but those are ones that anybody can use in their research. And like you said, Darren, I mean, the states here's a couple of good ones. Most people now realize Tennessee is like it's rocking and rolling. I mean, it's not just Nashville. Little towns we used to hear on Hee Haw, like Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg, they're now massively growing. And I'm going to let a secret out of the bag here. My family, both sides, are from South Carolina. Everybody knows about Greenville. Greenville, South Carolina has been in the news for a generation, but there's so many other areas in South Carolina that just now beginning to be discovered, and the prices are so affordable. And you've got 95 coming down through there. You know, it's just to me, I some people call it a sleeper state. It's like the only one left like that, where there's growth on what we call the sunshine, the smile. The coastal states. So in any case, sorry to get off on a tangent there. I want to touch on something up. Texas is probably still or is one of the better states legislatively. We have noticed in other states, and typically it's going to be your blue states, California, New York, New Jersey, where the rules and regulations related to residential housing, rental housing, have been leaning more towards the renter and away from the owner. But that's not true in places like Texas and Florida and Alabama, Mississippi, and all that. And I'm not saying don't invest in California. I know plenty of people invest in California and make a lot of money. Everything's relative, but you just have to think through the, all the pros and cons. What's the upside potential? What's the downside risk? And things like taxation or regulation, we actually have to study that. And I didn't do that, Darren, when I was first starting. I was totally on offense. I'm just scoring points left and right. Didn't think a thing about defense. But you realize you got to play some defense too. So here's what I get into. Are you seeing any of that in Texas? I mean, I know Austin's a little more progressive than say like Houston, politically, but still it's Texas and it's just a great state. But are you seeing any of that kind of stuff happening at the local level, or is there areas that are more favorable? Like I know there's Fredericksburg, Temple, Texas, outside of San Antonio and Austin. I love those little towns.
No, they're incredibly strong. I've been in tech. I mean, I've lived East Coast, West Coast, but came back to Texas in 2001. But the MSA, the metros were like I live in no one's ever heard of this little town. Okay. I live in Bee Cave, Texas. Okay. I'm 18 miles outside of Austin, downtown Austin. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was in, oh gosh, I want to say high school, college, there was this swimming hole out here. And
Mm-hmm.
when we would go to Austin, we would end up coming out to this swimming hole that I live by now called Hamilton Pool. And
Mm-hmm.
we thought that was at the end of the earth. It was, because the little farm roads to get over to it, the little FMs,
Oh
little
yeah.
stop signs, there's tractors. Now you've got major thoroughfares. So the infrastructure's all put in. It would have taken me
Right.
an hour plus to get to downtown Austin to the Hamilton Pool. Now I'm 25 minutes. So,
Mm-hmm.
the suburbs of the major metros, you said it, Fredericksburg,
Yeah.
Georgetown, and Austin. Killeen is up north of Austin. All of
Mm-hmm.
those have great markets. And one thing else I want to point out that I think is incredibly important to
Mm-hmm.
understand people in the single family duplex quads, if that's the market, is we run analysis all the time on the zip codes and even down to the street level of what it costs to rent versus what it costs to own. All right. Just the delta between the monthly payment in this last asset we did in North Austin, it was
Mm-hmm.
$900 more to own than it was to rent. All right. So
Wow.
in
Yeah.
Austin, and that doesn't take into account taxes, insurance, utilities. Okay. They didn't take that
Mm-hmm.
in, maybe utilities, but it was $900. All right. Or the down payment. So there are markets that are very renter oriented, and the metros like Austin, it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It used to be, you could afford to live here. Well, you can't anymore. Now you got to live, out here, and the infrastructure's been put in to support that. So I think it's a renter's market, especially in places like
Mm-hmm.
Austin. Maybe not. Dallas is a little more not favor. It's still a renter's market in the Dallas market as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's if your guys are looking for rental production, you're in a great spot in
Yeah.
places like Texas. So there's going and our net migration and net jobs were number
Yeah.
one in the nation. Florida was 2 and 3. So
Yeah.
I look at this and I just say we're in a really fortunate place to execute on what you guys do. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I mean, the other thing too about Texas is obviously DFW is a major airport, and American Airlines that's their main hub. You look at it where it is geographically. I mean, people going from east to west. I know you can get a lot of direct flights, but let's face it, that hub there is major. And then you've got the major artery coming down from DFW down through Austin and San Antonio. By the way, one of my favorite little towns is New Braunfels. I love
yeah,
German food, and there's a little German restaurant. I mean, there's a lot of German restaurants there, of course, but
yeah.
there's one I can't remember the name. But I ate there 3 nights in a row one time. You
And
know,
and
so
I bet those plates were full. I mean, I bet they were
oh
full.
yeah, oh
Like you
man,
could have taken 3 people could have eaten it. So it's,
yeah.
we got
Hey,
two
well, let
projects
me
in New
ask you.
Brunswick. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, is there any? And we got a few minutes left here. Is there a project you have right now you're working on that you'd like to showcase? Maybe as a teaching tool, but also if there's a way for people to participate, um, uh, something current day or something maybe it's in the works and you're looking at it.
Yeah. So, and thanks for asking. We have two, like I told you, we're working on the pref equity right now. We think the common equity for development it would have to be a unique case. I mean, there's some out there, but it's not our kind of go-to investment tool for our investors right now. But we have two projects going on, one up in the DFW area and one in South Florida. And both of these are developers that we have done repeat business with. We know them very well. We've exited, actually with each of them, we've exited two deals very successfully. And we're going to come in and do their preferred equity for them. The Dallas
Mhm.
one, the North Texas Dallas one is going to be about a 2 to 2.5 year investment. And the Fort Myers, Florida one is going to be about a 1.5 years to a 2 year investment.
Mhm.
And they're going to be the preferred equity. So we're going to be ahead of the common equity. So we're protected with that. We love both assets. In the event that something happens, and we end
Mhm.
up owning them, or we may even come in and try to buy them because both groups are what's called merchant builders. They build it,
Okay.
lease, and sell it. But like I mentioned earlier about kind of that Trojan horse with an olive branch, we're going to have a
Mhm.
front row seat to both assets. And we're going to be sitting
Nice.
there ready to acquire those. And we're at the point of our company and my career and my life where we want to hold more assets for
Yep.
long-term cash flow. So we do have those two. And I'll show
Okay.
you. I think who Carl Rove is.
Yeah, I know the name. I
Yeah,
don't know if I know it,
yeah.
but I know
Carl
the
Rove
name. Yeah.
used to consult with George Bush. I call him
Yeah.
Junior. Yeah, he'd
Mhm.
always do his little whiteboard. He would always do his little presentation like this. Yeah.
Club Capital. Okay.
So if
Yeah.
anybody wants to go look at those, it's clubcapital.co
Okay.
forward
I'm
slash
gonna write
cash
that
flow.
down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Capital.co/.
Clubcapital.co forward slash cash flow. Um,
Okay.
and we have that up there, but we're gonna be doing pref equity and by design. We think we'll do 4 or 5 pref equities a year. Hopefully we'll pick up one of those assets, if not two, over that course of that.
Mhm.
If we do the pref equity today, we'd be picking that asset up in 2.5, 3 years from now. But
Right.
I'm pretty excited about it. I love getting inside and watching the asset develop to determine if
Mhm.
it's the one we want to buy or not.
Yeah. So this would be who would be like the ideal participant? I mean, could it be a dentist in Chicago that's got 3 practices and they just don't have the time like you and I do to go look at properties, but they want to provide capital? Is that is available to anybody in the U.S. to provide the funds and put that in for
Yeah,
have a preferred position?
sure. We are, we do accredited investors, but our business 10 years ago started with a handful of doctors. So we
Okay.
have a lot of doctors, dentists,
Mhm.
and a lot of medical professionals. And it just started there because we had some doctor friends that said, "Man, I don't have time for this. I trust you. Show me what to do." In
Yeah.
fact, first deal I told you about that we had to get really resourceful. One of my doctor friends looked at me. He goes, "I have no idea what you're saying, but you better not lose my money." I said, "I got it." He
That's
goes,
hilarious.
"Yeah, he did," and he's holding a jug of scotch, on the
Yeah.
rocks, looking at me, going, "You just better not lose my money." And I was going, "I will not lose your money." So, but no, we
Yeah.
have. Well, I'd say, gosh, at least 30, if not 40% of our investor group is
Okay.
medical professionals. So we understand their language, we understand their stories.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, this has been pretty awesome. I know we're probably close to that magic half hour mark, but you know, is there anything you want to share with people here? Like we talked about, a lot here. I'm just so grateful we did this show. You gave a lot of gold nuggets. And I know people have questions, like you said, the doctor, they don't understand everything. When there's so much to learn, guys, we could probably do, 5 more podcasts and still not cover everything. Like the difference between having cash and having cash flow, for example. Um, but is there anything you want to share, do you think would be important based on what we've already talked about for people and how people, so we can go to clubcapital.co/cash flow and learn about a couple of the current projects you have. But it could even be words of wisdom, something you want to share with people that really tie things together and and some direction going forward,
Yeah, I got to tell you, there's something I always think about, and I think the older we get, the more we realize it. And it's really taking some actionable steps. And maybe on another one, we'll talk about this. I have a little story about a hero's journey, and setting up why you want to set up passive cash flow. And
Okay.
it's a whole nother podcast. I love the story because I've seen the impact it's had on other people. But I want to tell people to kind of know your why,
Yeah.
or you're going to lose your way. If you don't have it fully documented in your brain and in your heart of what your why
Yeah.
is, you're just going to lose your way. So understand that,
Yeah.
because you want to just bounce around. I bounced around for a little bit after like 3 years. I go, what am I doing? Get focused, but I was excited,
Yeah.
and you can get excited, and that's okay, but don't get excited for 10 or 15 years and get this, analysis paralysis and never go. But just
Yeah.
know your why.
Yeah. Was that what you're referring to? I mean, let's definitely do another podcast. Is that the Never Quit initiative? Is that what that's referring to? You're referring to?
That's the output of it.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's in memory of my wife who passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
from cancer. And if we hadn't have had set up, and when we did this, we did not know that the passive cash flow would save us through her
Okay.
medical trauma. Okay. We were
Wow.
doing it, we were doing it for the freedom part. Okay.
Yeah.
But it flipped immediately, and I was able to take care of her and my two young children for
Mhm.
a period of time. But if I had
Yeah.
not, and we saw people who did not have passive cash flow in the treatment rooms and stuff, and
Yeah.
it bankrupted them.
Yep.
And medically, they were having to follow the insurance protocol. We were fortunate that we could follow the doctor protocol, because I said, I don't care what the insurance says. I'm going to do what the doctor says. And so
Exactly.
we got a treatment that was far different, which extended her life by 3.5 years. So it was that, again, it's a whole other story about that. But I
Yeah.
can't stress that enough, that you may have what your idea is today, but God, life changes, and you never know. And if you're
Yep.
prepared, you're going to be fine. You may have to pivot in your preparedness, but you're going to be fine. So that
Yeah.
it's we'll do this again some other time, and I'll kind of walk through the story.
Yeah. I'll make sure of the link Beverly provides to do this. So make if you have that, or whoever your partner is that does that for you, make sure they set up another. I want to talk about that and go into that, because that's a big part of our journey. Every entrepreneur that I've ever met eventually gets to that point and has something happen. And by the way, I want to tell people here at the cash flow part, I couldn't agree more. I broke my back in two places 13 years ago last month, 13 years ago last month. And thankfully, I had a lot of properties bringing in cash flow. You know,
Yeah,
but the
exactly.
doctor, yeah, he used. I don't have any rods and cages and stuff like that. There, and he put cement in my back. There's like medical cement, NASA's medical cement or something. But I haven't had a single problem after I got to go through therapy to learn how to walk again. But once I did, man, I've been everything: skiing, golfing, hiking, bike riding. You know, it's unbelievable. So when you have cash flow, guys, passive cash flow, it gives you other opportunities. It makes more things available to you. And I hate to say it because some people don't have that, but we'll use it as inspiration to get it. Follow the models. Talk to Darren. Go to the website, guys. Go to clubcapital.co/cashflow. All right, and make an inquiry and talk to Darren about his story. That's how you learn. That's how I learned. I didn't get where I'm at by myself. Lord knows I definitely had a lot of help. You know, so that's how you do it. I don't care where you are in life. You can always get to that next level. I don't care how old you are. If you wake up in the morning, that means you got gas in the tank. You know. So in any case, I could spend another hour preaching here, but um, Darren, I really appreciate this, and everybody listening, please leave a review. Man, this is golden. You just got a golden podcast today, thanks to Darren. So So your reviews are our currency in the podcast world. We don't get paid for this. I mean, indirectly we build relationships, but really it's a community service, and we love to do it. It's fun, it's fulfilling. But your reviews is what makes it all go around. So we really appreciate that. And we will see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. In the meantime, God bless you and your families.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.